All right, folks, good evening. Thank you for volunteering yet another significant portion of your time for AYSO. Um, we have an interesting presentation from Miller tonight, and you can tell by the attendees that this is something a little different. So plenty of you have never worked with Team3 before, so a quick introduction on that is Team3 is a referee development group that has grown out of Area 10W. That's Ventura and Santa Barbara counties in California. Everybody on here right now is in California. At least is registered in California. Excuse me. So yeah, we focus on referee development. We offer mentoring on all of our games. We film our games, and we have field sessions where we practice the skills we need to be comfortable doing them during the game. And then we, of course, have focus discussions, which is what you're in right now. Um, and normally it's targeted at the referees, but as you can tell, the content available tonight, we have some national candidates and some prospective national candidates here eagerly attending, thinking they're going to get all the secrets that they need to know for those national assessments. But also we have plenty of well-seasoned assessors, instructors, and whatnot here tonight. I forgot to mention, we do also have Play of the Fortnight, where we take key clips from our games and do a little write-up and a highlight on them. So that's a longer introduction than normal. However, I'm excited to see a large number of names here that we aren't typically graced with seeing on Team3 events. So with that being said, I'm going to throw to Miller Newland, but not before saying thanks for all the hard work that goes into creating these original lessons that you provide, the data collection, and I know you're very excited. You're always passionate about what you're doing. So Miller, why don't you take us away? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you very much.
That sounds good. So I have to put a big to do with Bob. He asked me to work with him with Section Trend. So he's helping me in transition into the position. So that's going to be this fall. And so I've been working on the referee side for many, many years, and it's nice to get on the referee coaching side. So I just got my license with US Soccer in February. And I was sharing with Lewis, it's quite a journey to get there. I had to do video analysis with FIFA national referees, and so it was a little bit beyond my comfort level, but I got through it and it was all good. A lot of learnings, and so what I hope to is bring some of my learnings into the AOSO side in terms of our assessment, and so that was part of my motivation. I'll share a little bit more with you there, but yeah. So my whole focus is basically referee assessment for Section 10, and so yeah, so thank you guys for being here. And most of all, this has been a great collaboration. It's given me a lot of insight as to what other evaluators, other assessors are looking at in terms of the whole program. And so and I was actually reflecting, Jim, on you, or where you had a session where you brought your assessors together for a calibration game, which was that was brilliant. Trying to bring everybody together and doing the same thing. What I found with looking at the data, which I will share in a few minutes with you, that it is obvious that that is part of the game of being a director of assessment, is trying to bring everybody together to a kind of a boundary where we're all kind of looking at the same thing, because there's some outliers in terms of what we look at, and I can imagine that's a challenge. And after I look at the data set, it's very, very fascinating. So I always like to support the T3 initiative. Lewis and the team do a great job. It gets me thinking, because beyond just the normal expo slides and some of the focus areas for their year, it allows me to kind of open my mind and see what I can do to support their operation. And so going into Ken Aston Cut, which we were trying to get this done 2 or 3 weeks ago, but vacation and other things precluded us from getting it presented then. But we have some Strawberry Cup this weekend, and so hopefully some national referees will get some good nuggets here, so when they go into their assessment, they can use this data to become more successful. Again, onboarding with Bob, it's learning our duties. Obviously, assessments is going to be the focus area. How do I support it? This gets me dives into how are we doing the process? What are we looking at? It's a great way to meet people between the Ken Aston Cup and this. I met a whole bunch of new people, and so you guys are going to be my mentors in developing a successful process. So thank you ahead of time for doing that. And then the other piece of it is basically it's an alignment with the work that I'm doing with U.S. Soccer and how their referee coaching programs works, how we do our assessments and feedback, and then how can I move that into the AYSO side? How can we learn from that, keeping it a very simplistic model to where we can support the the National Referee Program manual, and then we can start building on it. So that's kind of the background as to the why I'm here. Tonight, what I thought I'd do is just kind of share the summary stats with the survey data. The survey data I sent out about a month ago, and we had some good diverse responses on it. So we're going to share that with you. Dive into the data, look for patterns. And so it's hard when you're looking at data. I tried to summarize it, but I didn't want to get too high level because there were some really interesting nuggets. And so I'd really like some feedback from you guys on, does this seem right? Is it too extreme? Is it not enough? And so that's going to be the rich discussion that we'll have tonight. And definitely as we're going through the data, please open up the floor and we'll have our conversations there. And then I summarized just a couple about techniques for effective evaluations. There was some interesting feedback, and so I've got a slide on that one, and that's more of from an evaluator standpoint. But there's some good nuggets that the referee candidates can take from that. Candidate personalities definitely came out to be one of the challenges of evaluator, and so me as running a program, I realized and I've learned the importance of understanding candidate personalities, understanding evaluator personalities, and matching those up and to make sure our program is successful. And so I've got a slide in on that. And then I just have some closing thoughts, just some random things that I put together based on looking at the data in my work with US Soccer. So if that seems fair, again, floor is open. This is a rich open conversation tonight. So please jump in. So,
so what is, I'm sorry, what
yes,
is
sir.
the data source here?
So the data source is that, so I sent out to section 1, 10, and 11, all of the national referee assessors. I sent basically a survey form to collect data on national referee assessments and national assistant referee assessments. And I was asking what were the critical qualities that created a successful pass? What were the qualities or detractors that would come up to a recommended for improvement? And I also, so I did that for the national referee as well as the national assistant referee. I also added the advanced referee just to see if there was any type of difference in how we approach that. And then, so I put that all together, and that's what the source of the data was.
Okay, well, thank you. It's curious because I only got this because Scott Jarrett, we were at a game and he mentioned this to me. And I talked to Al Prado, who is the director of assessment in section 1, and he had not heard of it. So I was just kind of curious how all this evolved.
Sure, very good. Fair question, Rick. So I got the names for section 1, 10, and 11, and I sent it out, making the request to say, hey, I've got the survey, and would it be okay to send it out? And so that's how we did it. So if I didn't get to you, I can definitely send it out to you so that you can take a look at it and we can share the data with you.
Okay, but this is separate from the request for feedback that we give assessment candidates.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is more, exactly. That is more of a individual assessment basis, where this one was a more of a general survey of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'll take it as an action item to Rick to make sure you got a link to that survey so you can see what the questions we asked.
Appreciate it.
Sure. So we had 21 survey responses. Definitely, we had a good range of experience level. Some new, less than the 5 years, but in majority 5 to 10, 10 plus years we had a lot of experience in terms of the people that supported the survey. You can see we've had a lot of experience, right? So 10, 20, there were some that were over 50 assessments. And so we had some really good people that had a lot of experience with this. And so I would say it was a diverse response group, and we got some good feedback. What was interesting, median pass rate was about 80% when you look at referee as well as AR assessments. I didn't run average because it's not a normal distribution. I only had 21 responses. So, but when you look at it, it's pretty close to that 80% mark. Is that what, based on what's in your minds, is that about fair of what you guys see?
Miller, it is not. If data that I saw probably a decade ago said pass rates were in the neighborhood of 50%, not 80%.
Really? Okay. All right. That's interesting. And it may be just the people that we had on our response, but that's an interesting statistic. Was that in general across the board? Was it section specific, or did they parse it down?
I can't tell you enough about either your data or that data to tell you how they differed. But it was in the neighborhood of 50%, and it's a number I have repeated several times, and none of my colleagues have ever corrected me.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for the feedback. That's interesting.
And Miller, one thing I would add is I know sometimes directors of referee assessment will use certain assessors when they know that the match may present a challenge for an assessor. So maybe we got a handful of, or you said 21 respondents, right?
Yes.
So maybe we got a large number of assessors who get more assignments that are more likely to be recommended for upgrade, and maybe we got fewer of those who see more of those games that are more likely to be recommended for further observation.
Sure. And then trying to strip out all the conditional biases, I mean, that come into it, it can be a challenge. So, interesting. Yeah, this data set, it was around 80%. So, yeah. So here's from a survey standpoint, it left the questions open rather than bridging to the specific National Referee Program Annual Assessment. For example, I didn't say what were the critical characteristics of positioning and movement that created a successful national referee pass. I left it open so that I could it was more of a free flow response from the assessors. As it turned out, they definitely moved into specific categories with in this case positioning and movement, but I left it open. And I just basically phrased it as critical characteristics. I could have used those, like I said, the National Referee Program Manual categories, but I left it open. In my world, in USSF referee coaching, we were working around a little different framework, all of which is very similar to the National Referee Program Manual that AYSO develops, but it's a little bit more consistent with FIFA, CONCACAF, the Canadian systems, the English systems, where it's the control of the game, teamwork, positioning, and movement. I can wrap everything in my AYSO framework, and I can move it right into the USSF framework, and it melts pretty quickly. There's a little bit of categorical switching depending on what we're talking about, but it's very consistent. And I think, and what I did was when I looked at the data and I started parsing it down, the USSF model worked a lot better to organize it. So that's how I'm going to present it to you guys tonight. So let me go to the data real quick. It's going to bring it right up. So here's where the form responses. Again, we had 21. So here's here's the how many, how long you've been doing it, how many assessments you've done. Same thing. This is the referee. Then that's the AR. And then basically it's a Google form. So if you're not familiar with it, it basically captures what everybody's. I did long paragraphs so I could. It was open for basically whatever the assessor wanted to write about. So I took all this, and then what I did is I overlaid it into the US soccer framework. And so it's around control of the game, it's teamwork right here, and then there's positioning and movement. And it's very consistent with the AYSO one. AYSO definitely has positioning and movement. They have the fitness and stamina along with positioning and movement. The teamwork side, very similar in terms of how the team's working together pre-game wise, assisting in signals, working together to match the flow of the game. And then where it differs a little bit is in terms of control of the game. So there's 4 categories. So optimizing game flow. So that one is basically the referee making it's their decision management space, and it's their flow space to work through the game, reading the game temperatures, and then acting accordingly to allow the game to progress. Advantage comes into it, identifying those moments of truth, right, where we have to make decisions. Definitely where the football understanding comes in. That's the game flow side. The personality and communication is the individual characteristic of how they present themselves on the field, similar to the AYSO model. You've got the attitude, confidence, character, the courage to make decisions, right? So that's the personality and communication side. You've got this dynamic personality of how we're communicating on the field, the body language you use. I know, and Lewis, you were just looking at how do we de-escalate using body language is one of those right before we started this presentation. So body language is definitely part of your personality and the tool set you use to manage the game. We have the laws of the game mechanics, and those are the technical infractions, foul and misconduct. That pairs right across into the AYSO space. In the game management, and this is pretty much what the processes that we do when the ball's out of play, other than time management, because time management is basically running real time throughout the game. But it's how we do restarts, wall management, substitution management, injury management, various things like that. So what I did was I took each one of these categories. This is the framework model. I basically built it out with each one of the topics. And then what I did is I went through every one of these form responses. So for instance, what are the critical characteristics for passing a referee assessment? And then what I will do is I will take that and I will put it into this framework. And my whole idea here was I wanted to see where the successful pass for a national referee or a recommended for further observation, where did it all kind of play out in it? And the thought there is that the evaluators will choose their important points that they're looking at. And then when I aggregate all that data, it's going to be interesting where it all plays out in terms of this framework. And what I'm seeing is, and what I did is I highlighted these cell categories where there was a lot of overlap with each one of the evaluator responses into this category. For example, proactively reads game temperature and acts to maintain balance. So these were the responses from our evaluators. Recognizes and manages different players, candidate being control of game through acceptable game management. There was a little bit of some of the definitions that the AYSO used. I had to take a little bit of liberty to move them into these categories. So I could put them in this category, and then I could also put it in game management. So I just tried to pick the best category. It seemed like it fits. But reading the game, managing it to a level that the players involved desire and require, right? So that's reading the game temperature. So that's what from a successful pass standpoint, the proactive game temperature, reading game temperature was real big. When I looked at it from a recommended for further observation, so this is where the candidates fail. You can see it's just the opposite, right? So failures to read temperature of the match, not reading the game properly, not attempting to work with the players. And so this is all in terms of reading their expressions or emotions, trying to understand and maintain that game temperature by using the tools to work with them. Not recognizing problems, loses control of the game. But it was interesting. This played out. This was one of the bigger categories. Was it control of the game? You can see that some of the assessors they definitely talked about advantage. And then if we don't, if there's fouls called versus advantage, if it's too loose, in other words, we play too much advantage, then game temperature can rise, and then it can jeopardize the control of the match. So let's see the other ones. Just a few people on managing players, player management, about dissent, behavior. But yeah, most of it was basically proactively reading game temperature. That was in the optimizing flow space. On the does that seem to connect to you guys in terms of what you look for in terms of game flow and reading game temperature? Is this one of the stronger categories that you look at as assessors for the candidates?
I have
Yes.
to say, is that when I watch a game, I watch for referee movement in the pack.
Okay.
Are they part of the pack? Because when you step back and look at it, if they're outside the pack, they're not in the right position. Second thing is I look for whether or not they are able to manage their team, referee team, communication, and are they managing the match to the level that the players want. Those are kind of the three things I look for.
So Rick, when you talk about managing the referee team, can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Is there a thorough pregame? Are we communicating? Are we prepared to manage? Are we prepared to step on the field and communicate? Do we have our signals set up? Do we have our assignments set up? Are we ready to manage this match together? And as the match goes on, are we prepared to communicate? Are we looking at each other? Are we signaling? Are we, communicating? Do the ARs, step in when they're supposed to? Do they perform to the level that the pregame set out? And to what extent does that contribute to the overall match management? We know as referees, when we're on the field, when we're communicating, if we're working together, it's a better match. If we're disconnected, it gets loose.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick, I think that Miller was really he's got those items down below for communication, for foul recognition, for positioning. I think he was just talking about on the section of the flow of the game, what areas in that area do we look for? Everything that you said is 100% correct. It's just other pieces of the puzzle that I think he's going to get to in a minute.
Okay.
And Rick, what interesting, and I was just writing some notes down just to think about it. Players getting the game they want. That's interesting because it's an expectation at this higher level, right? They come in with a certain skill set, a certain need for competition and for playing together to win, right? And so they bring that expectation to it. So it's exactly reading that expectation, understanding how that affects game temperature. It all wraps into it. And I think some of your other points about managing the referee team, that's going to come in teamwork, the communication, exactly. I agree with that. Any other comments?
Sometimes we look at the game and say, well, there were no cards issued. Well, maybe the referee did a really good job of communicating with players and dealing with it before a card became necessary. And did you observe them talking to the players? And afterwards, did you extract from them their conversation with the players, what their mental mindset is
Mhm.
to engaging the players in a way that produces a fun match.
Mhm. No, good points. Good points. Okay, so let me move down here. So that was about the flow. Obviously the personality communication piece. Rick mentioned that too, about how we are communicating to the different entities on the field, right? So appropriate communication participants. Most important here that was definitely resonated was a dynamic personality, good verbal communication, good body language on the pitch. And obviously these will span different categories on the opposite side, which supports these characteristics: lack of urgency, lack of commitment and hustle, underconfidence. You can definitely see that when you're out on the pitch, when you're evaluating a referee or a referee team, and it's very important to have that presence, that personality on the pitch. And so let me open the conversation up to a couple of the referees and say, does this resonate with you? I see a couple names I haven't met. So there's Joel. I know Keith, we work together. Nicholas, I don't know if you were on the referee side or the assessor side, but perhaps you guys can comment from a referee standpoint, the importance of presence, dynamic personality, how it affects you on your matches, and does it put you in a good place? Is it something that you always need, or is it always in your back pocket, or just maybe some brief comments on that? Okay, we got some quiet people tonight, so all right.
They're shy.
That's okay. Robert, can I pick on you? Or you want to take a few ideas on that and just talk about how you use personality and your kind of your attitude and confidence with and how you referee on the pitch?
Okay, so is it me or Robert Hurwitz?
Oh, I'm sorry. You first, and then I'll do Bob next.
And I'm
Sorry.
ready to go too.
Go ahead, Robert.
Robert Blair?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it really depends. I kind of feel my way through the first, 10 minutes or so. With different teams, I react differently. It really depends on the personalities as it develops in the game, quite frankly.
Okay.
Some people, some players are friendlier and we have a communication. It's really easy. Some other players are very, very focused on aggressive play. And I may have to say some words of caution, not give a caution, but say some words, to kind of keep it under control before I have to take any other further action.
Okay. All right. Scott, do you do the same? Do you have the same kind of philosophy there? Anything to add to that? Okay.
I'm sorry, Miller. I was having
Thank you.
this is Keith. I had a hard time unmuting my microphone, but I'm happy to talk about this. So I think this is an enormous part of setting the table for a successful game. And you got to do it right at the beginning with the players to set a good tone with them, to respect them in the check-in, to speak to them like, especially in upper level games, to speak to them where in a way that respects their knowledge of the game, not to give them too much. They don't need you to lecture them beginning. And if you can set some kind of a joke or get some kind of a tone that actually resonates with a 17-year-old player, that's a huge win. And then that can really win you so much when you go into the game. And then, you continue that, hopefully that respect into the game.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a big part of it.
No, thanks. Oh, good. No, good. Very, very prudent points. Exactly. I mean, this is always this personality as I've refereed to the higher levels. It is so important to create that relationship on the field. And to your point, starting with a lighthearted joke or something like that, it's really just creating that connection, establishing that relationship on the field, and reading what the players want. So, okay, that was personality communication, laws of the game, mechanics.
And Miller,
Go ahead.
Scott has his hand up.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
I would just add, I know that feedback focused on the players. I think it's equally important that we also communicate well with the coaches, the coaching staff, or
You muted yourself, Scott. Scott, you're muted.
sorry.
There
My
you go.
apologies.
No
Sorry.
worries.
I thought I had unmuted, but I guess I got remuted.
You're good.
I think it's important for us to communicate, to also add to there, it's communications with the coaching staff or the team officials, whatever you want to call them. In that you have to set a good tone and interaction with them certainly at the beginning of the game and maybe even during the game, because players, particularly the younger players, and I'm speaking non-professionals, have a tendency to mimic the behavior that the coach has or exhibits. And I think setting a good tone with the coach and a good relationship with the coach is equally important.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. No, good point. Very, very valid points.
And by the way, since we're talking AYSO, and we rely on the coaches to manage their sideline behavior, which is obviously different from college and high school and professional. But since we rely on those coaches, it's important to build a really strong relationship with them, knowing that they're the ones we're going to be turning to quiet down the unruly mob that's sitting, 15 feet away from the touchline. And if we don't have that good relationship, they're just going to give you that deer caught in the headlight look when you ask them for help. And that's why it's important to establish that up front.
Yeah, no, one of your best tools in your toolbox. Agreed. Okay, so just on the laws of the game mechanics, foul misconduct, this was very, very clear from all the assessors. Competent to see and make the appropriate calls or non-calls, correctly applying laws of the game, foul recognition. You can see how important this is to the system. And then on the opposite side, where when we don't pass a candidate, misses impactful fouls, not applying it correctly, lack of knowledge. So definitely resonant with many of the players there. U.S. Soccer looks at the foul play on top of the cautionable and send off. So these kind of go, there's your fouls and misconduct. And then it's interesting, they bring in some of their focus areas or persistent infringement, and then managing these gray areas. So this is the foul plus and the caution plus areas. And we spent a lot of time trying with presentations to understand how do you move those orange level fouls, right? That caution plus foul, or when do we need to give a caution as opposed to a visual butt chewing, right? To slow on some type of call where you are right in the careless to reckless area, and perhaps you can use your tool set of your relationship and verbal communication as opposed to giving your caution. So these are some of the areas, but in the survey, everything basically moved down to the fouls and misconduct. The game management, it's interesting because I think this is a general term that a lot of the national assessors use, which is game management and match management. And so what I learned here was everybody's kind of got a different definition of what that is. And so in terms of how to kind of parse this out in the framework, the game management was where what we had to do when the ball was out of play. And in this area, restart management was very, very big. This definitely drew a lot of feedback from the assessors. Proper restarts, the mechanics on dynamic and set plays, clear knowledge of the NARs and the restarts. So this was definitely very important. So that was on the control side. Let's see what else here. So teamwork. So this one, on the U.S. Soccer framework, respect for match officials, empowerment, spirit of cooperation, and Rick, exactly what you were saying in your earlier comment about managing the ref team, right? Very, very important. We used more of the general terms like teamwork, ref team communication to basically embody most of this. I like this idea. This is one of the areas we in US soccer, we concentrate on about eye contact, discrete signals for communication. There was good feedback on this about checking with ARs on stoppages, communicating during the match, a lot on signals and communications. And so that was good to see. Does that resonate? Anything else on the teamwork standpoint that that jumps out that we look at that I didn't capture here?
These are all good points.
Miller, I have, as an evaluator or an assessor, I like to see the center referee looking back at his trail assistant at any stoppage of play. And I think that's real important. It engages the assistant referee. It helps keep his attention. And it shows that you're working together as a team. But I place a big value on that, and the idea of that center being able to pivot his head, swivel, and look, and in both ARs if need be.
Is that something that you often see in your assessments, or is it every 50% of the time?
I often see it happening. I see more of it now than I used to, because I think we talk about it more now, and I think it's taught more now, and I think before people get to the assessment level and get to their assessment games, they've had practice games and have worked with groups like Team3, and they've learned the importance of having that eye contact. So I don't want my AR dozing on the touchline somewhere.
Fair enough. Yes, exactly. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I think that's obviously that's something that Team3 teaches, and we really try to execute. It's interesting, just as a note, as a possible note from an assessor. I always say, I'll check in with you, on every dead ball situation. But from an assessor, I had somebody say, "Oh, have you ever tried to flip that around and say, hey, check in with me?" Like tell the AR to check in. That gives them something to do. That feels like, hey, they need to do something at every dead ball situation, which I think is just it's a nuanced thing, a slight change, but I kind of like it. And I was told that by an assessor one time, and I thought it was an interesting point.
Yeah, there's another interesting comment too, and I saw this in one of the teams at the Ken Aston Cup, where the referee was holding their call until the AR made their call. Many times the referee is just going to go up and they're going to make the, if it's a goal kick, restart, or say a corner kick, referee is going to immediately signal. And then all of a sudden the AR is still moving to the line sometimes, and then they're going to do their signal. But in one team, I saw the referee distinctly wait for that AR to signal together. So it's another example of, guess what? We're working together. I'm waiting for you, and you're just as important on the calls as the referee with the person with the whistle. So.
And Miller, on this teamwork aspect, I'm hoping to hear some more from the Team3 referees, because our theme this year, we have a theme every year. We don't just teach refereeing. Was or is building a winning referee team. We had a big focus on the Ken Aston Cup. We had referees on 4 or 5 teams at the Cup. So the referees we have here, we've been pounding in their heads for months, this teamwork aspect. So hopefully one or two of them can speak up even a little more to their perspective from the referee side.
Exactly. Any other thoughts before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, I just build on it about waiting for the center referee to wait for the AR to put up his flag and make his signal. After a while, the AR stops running down to the line. Why do you need me? You already made the call. You don't need me at all. So go ahead, make your call. And so, and again, I think it diminishes the value of your AR, and it's sort of degrading. You're saying, I don't need your help, and you do. And if not, you got to at least show it. And that's the respect for the AR. So I'll wait for your signal just to make sure we're on board.
Yep, no, good point. Good point.
This is,
Okay,
this
go
is
ahead.
Robert. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think it's really a mutual responsibility, because sometimes I've been the referee and I've been not with Team 3, but in other crews where my AR isn't looking at me during stoppages, and I keep looking, and it doesn't, that the AR is not doing that. And it takes discipline to continue to look at the AR, because I've said it in my pregame. And on the other hand, I've been an assistant referee with a referee I don't normally work with, and they hardly ever look at the assistant referee. So I think that those are the not good situations, but it's great when both the assistant referee and the referee are working together, and even the mirroring for the other assistant referee, so that we can all have a better match for the players and
No,
coaches.
very valid, very valid.
So Robert, I would suggest to you, even if the assistant is not looking at you, keep looking over and giving the thumbs up, because the coach sees it and the spectators see it.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
The last piece about position.
Also,
Go ahead.
I would like to add, during my pregame brief, I'll of course tell the assistant referees that I'm going to be checking in with them, and especially with a new assistant referee, one that is not that experienced. As look back at them during stoppages in play, it gets them involved, and it makes them feel like they're important. They have something to do and can contribute.
No, good points. Very good points, Chris. Last category, positioning and movement. Again, same thing. We're talking about took positions with good viewing angles, and then proximity to play. Very consistent with the AYSO side in terms of the characteristics we saw. And then on the movement side, same thing. It's that stamina levels, right? We have this fitness for 90 minutes, physical fitness, big time. It was definitely prevalent in many of the comments. And so, yeah, so that was the referee side. For just in interest of time, I've got the same thing here set up for the assistant referees. But then what I did is I brought it, and I'm going to aggregate it back to. Let me just change this. I just have to find the. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to take this right back here, and then again the summary points. Here's where. What I just shared with you, and these were the big points from the referee standpoint, about proactivity, reading match temperature, again, attitude, confidence, recognition of foul play, misconduct, game management, definitely know the mechanics, all those different out of play requirements of the game. Then teamwork, definitely working together, eye contact, positioning, again, angle, proximity, and then stamina. And then when we looked at the AR standpoint, these were the categories that jumped out. So again, professional and dynamic personality. The personality more on the AR was managing the touch lines, right? Working with the coach, making sure they've got a good relationship there, especially if they've got some of the spectators that are getting a little bit too boisterous, using the coach to help manage it. In terms of the laws of the game, definitely credible recognition, offside of fouls, very much true on the offside. But it was interesting as we get into the higher levels, how the ARs play a larger role in identifying and confirming the fouls and misconduct, working with the referee, bringing in the teamwork standpoint, but then working together to make the correct calls. On game management, substitution was the critical side for ARs, making sure that we get that correct. Teamwork, collaboration, respect, eye contact again. And then from a positioning standpoint, it's more of the dynamic play. They're obviously positioned with the second to last opponent. That is their goal. Assuming the ball is down in the attacking half, right? And as Keith says, right, you're either at the halfway line, second to last opponent, or you're chasing the ball, right? And that's where you're staying up with your alignment. And then obviously stamina and this dynamic movement of being able to sidestep and to be able to constantly shift your position as that line shifts. So, but interesting. It would just overall very interesting in terms of how the data came about. When I look back in terms of my assessments, as well as when I was being assessed, these definitely played an important role in it. So any general comments or any observations? Say, hey, I expected something else to be in here and it wasn't here, or anything beyond like what Rick was saying in terms of some of the critical processes. Did they come into this framework?
Yeah, there's one piece for me on the assistant that I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on. One of the things that I'm looking for a national assessment for an assistant referee is that they're following the instructions given to them by the referee.
Okay.
And I know that comes into kind of the communication and teamwork piece, but there may be specific asks that the referee has of them.
Yes.
And so one of the things they should be demonstrating is that they heard, understand, ask clarifying questions, and follow those instructions.
No, good point. Good point. Good point, Lauren. And when you let me do some follow up with that on in terms of your AR assessments. Is that common with the groups that you work with, or is it something that you don't see enough of?
You're saying the following instructions?
Yeah. In terms of actual experience on your side, do you see that where they're following the instructions of the referee, or do they just kind of listen in heads during the pregame, but they don't really follow it during the game? What's your experience?
I've seen it a lot when I'm mentoring, that they're not following direction, and I think it's just a matter of things that are not habit for them. I think that a lot of people find it difficult to deviate from what they normally do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just kind of example, that kind of thing. When I referee, I tell the assistant referees I need standard signals. And when I look at them, I don't need any signal in return. Please don't give me the sweeping hand, thumbs up. I'm just looking to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them anything else you do causes confusion. And inevitably, I get thumbs up, wave, sweeping hands. They feel the need to give me some kind of hand signal to indicate a player is not offside. So like I said, I think it's just habit and overcoming that is an issue. But part of the communication piece, part of the teamwork piece really is making sure before the match that everyone is on the same page in terms of what the expectations are for the hours.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
I think
Ben, I saw you had a hand.
Go ahead. Yeah, next, Ben.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually think that this set of summary points looks very good. And I think it's important to have a certain things that we're looking for in the assessment. And I think I think that I can't really identify big areas that are missing. I do think that we have some issues to work with in terms of the pregame, because I think we're asking, getting to Lauren's point, I think we're asking many of our assessors to do something that's unnatural. We're asking them to do something that they basically never do as sort of a performance. And then of course they're not going to do what they're not used to doing during the match. And I think one of the things that I try to, and I think we should be emphasizing more, is by the time somebody gets to be a national candidate, it's pretty much expected that they know the standard signals. It's pretty much expected they're going to be able to do that. If they don't, that's a problem, yes. But the pregame is really about what do we need to be worried about in this particular match?
Mm-hmm.
Are there problems with the teams here? What is the temperature going to be? What are the stakes here? Do we know anything about the teams that might make it easier or harder to deal with? I'm not entirely sure how to deal with that, because I'm not sure that in most of the things that I've seen, a pregame, which is a 10-minute long recitation of all the laws and what you're going to do, is not really very useful at this level. But on the other hand, let's just go out there and do it is not very useful either. So I'm not entirely sure how to do that. I have to confess that I probably put less emphasis on the thoroughness and detail of the pregame than maybe other folks do, and more emphasis on what actually happens in the match. I do think that it's important to try to emphasize that folks who are being assessed have worked together, but that's sort of a meta issue. I mean, that's you get what you get.
Understand. Keith and then Rick. Thank you, Ben.
I was I was just gonna say, yeah, I like that. I mean, I was gonna say something, and what Ben said made me think again. That you know we are when we go out there required to kind of go through this litany of things that we may not always do. But I think the measure there is. You know, so Lauren said, well, I don't want to see hand signals or sweeping or this, and it's hard for them to get out of that. Um, I think that communication happens with your AR. I think it's important that this is what your referee would like you to do. This is how I would like to communicate as a team. And if the referee's, I think, very strict, and you know you're not taking into account that, hey, there might be different styles, as long as they're within a communication framework that's acceptable. You know, hey, I don't want you to up there waving the flags and stuff. But I will ask somebody when I'm refereeing with them, do you like to give that hand signal to show me the ball's in play? I mean, I don't need it, but if you want to do that and you feel that's useful, please go ahead and do that. But you don't need to. So, but that's my instruction as a referee. So I think the evaluation point is, you know, what has the referee told you, and are you operating within that framework? So,
Oh, good point. Good point, Rick.
So, speaking as an assessor, when I approach the team, and Keith will recognize this from the cup, I keep detailed notes of what the referee's briefing is, and I really approach it as a referee coach. Back when I got it, back when I had my assessment, you know, there wasn't such a thing. You did your briefing and you went out. But today, as a referee coach, when you listen to the referee do their pregame, if they're missing some things, you want them to. You don't want the team to walk on the field unprepared. You want them to be prepared to do the game, and maybe it goes. Maybe it becomes a topic for conversation in the debrief, but you want them to know that they're prepared for the game.
Okay.
And Keith, I have to tell you, your pregame, while a little bit scattered, was fabulous.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Nice work. Nice work. Real quickly, Lewis first, then Cindy.
Yeah, so that's I liked how Rick's comment there responded to Ben. You know, Ben had the statement, how do we, he had the question, how do we address that? And as an assessor, I find that challenging because I'm not going to give a 2 hour discussion on the game in which I get to every point, and unless it impacts the match, the for me, the pregame doesn't get discussed. However, in venues where I get to be a referee coach, be a mentor, that comes up more often. So it's kind of something that needs to live additionally outside of the assessment process. But if anybody has a good way to hit that in the assessment process, I'm certainly curious, as Ben is.
Thank you, Cindy.
I was going to add, when I'm doing an assessment of an assistant referee, I'm always keenly aware of what's the referee saying in the pregame. Is the assistant referee engaged? And I'm really encouraged, and I find it leads to good success when I see the assistant referee asking about those things that the referee didn't cover. I think that's a key signal that this is an assistant referee who is going to work well with the referee, and they're going to have effective communication.
Good points. Yeah, very good points. No, all good points. All good points. Interesting, as you guys were talking, in addition to listening, I actually jotted down a note. Wouldn't it be interesting, is this might be an expo topic where, say, a pregame for an advanced or national referee, and you could have a very interesting session of what everybody gives, and then you could narrow it down to the critical few, what's very important for the match. And it might be an interesting topic to bring together, because we've seen so many, we've seen the eloquent, the 20-30 minute pre-game to the 10 minute, just the bare bones of what we need to talk about. So it might be an interesting topic to discuss.
That would be a fabulous workshop.
Okay.
A new workshop for Expo.
Tell you what I'll do is I will take that as an action. What I'll do is I'll kind of kick some ideas around with Bob. I don't know the whole process of Expo, but I'll take it as an action, and we can kick some ideas around. So
Okay, happy to work that with you.
Excellent, thank you, Rick. Mehrdad, do you want to do a quick comment on this one, and then in the interest of time, I'm going to try to keep moving forward and try to get us out of here at 7:15. So.
Yeah, I just have one note on the pregame. Pregame never really works unless the referee team has been working together and practicing those thoughts. If they never work together, pregame is just a symbol of pregame and does not carry any meaning.
Okay.
And I have seen it that the referee team that never works together, the AR doesn't follow up the half of the pregame what the referee has asked. That's all.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Ben, your comment on anything on pregame?
Yeah, I'd just like to suggest is if you're working on an Expo presentation, have several different scenarios. You're working with people you've never met before. You're working with people, you're a national referee, you're working with new referees. You're three national referees working together, all different, lots of, because it's going to be different for each thing. I think that would be useful.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. Great point. I'm sure we can put a couple minds together and we can put together a pretty interesting presentation. So that's good. So let me just let me move forward a little bit. Let me get right here. So just a couple notes, and this came out through reading a lot of the survey. Techniques to present an effective evaluation. Setting the context before the game. This was an interesting comment by one of the assessors. And they said, yeah, it's a normal game. Enjoy working to build a positive experience. And I thought that was very valid, because most of the candidates coming in are very, very nervous, right? And so, Keith, to your point, trying to use a little humility and humor to try to settle and build your relationship with teams. Perhaps this is the way to say, hey guys, this is guys and gals, it's a normal game. Enjoy. We're working to build, a positive experience for you. So that was interesting. A safe learning space, reading the candidate, understanding if they're open, defensive, insistent, right? And this is basically creating a space where we can effectively have a good conversation and share a good assessment, definitely the positives and feedback. Obviously, to be human. Putting the candidate at ease. I'm going to use you again, Keith. I love this humorous moment of the match. One of the assessors said, "Hey, this is a great way to connect with the candidates at the end. Pick one of a moment of the match and share that, especially if it was funny." Again, let the candidate do the talking, right? Leading open-ended questions. We've learned a lot about that in the classes that we're giving. I'm working with Bob at Ken Aston this year, and this is one of the points about how do we ask those open-ended questions, let the candidate talk, and then ask for that self-reflection, right? Because they're the ones that are learning from this. And let's see. Yeah, candidate reflection, gauge the difficulty, what worked, how difficult was the game, what worked, what could have been done better. And then the feedback side, and this was interesting. I do a monthly referee coach session with U.S. Soccer now, and they're starting to model how we give feedback. And it was interesting is that you work through definitely focus on the positives. We work through critical match incidents first, and then we start moving into improvement areas. What was interesting is that when we talk about improvement areas, we use the control of the game first, prioritized then by teamwork, prioritized then by positioning and movement. And so it was interesting from a hierarchy of how we give the feedback. In many of my assessments, what I've always found and this is more common, is that it's positioning the movement that's not putting us in the right place to do foul recognition, to be able to see, to show your presence on a challenge or contact. And so what they're coaching to us is actually use this a different hierarchy in terms of our feedback. So something just to share with you. We definitely don't. I've never been coached on the AYSO side in terms of how to give the feedback, other than do the pluses and the minuses and work through your improvement areas. Let's see, and then candidate personalities. Just a quick comment on that. This is very interesting, and this came out in many of the surveys. Is you got to gauge your candidate. Is it going to be a productive conversation, or is it going to be a difficult conversation? And I think we've all been in that situation, right? Where we've had the candidate that they're very, very good and they don't want to change. They don't think they need to change. And the question and the challenge for us as assessors is how can we convey those nuggets to where they say, that's a good point. Let me think about that, right? And that's all we ask for as an assessor. That's in the difficult candidate range. When it's productive, when you're working those purely enthusiastic referees that will take every bit of information and move forward with it, it's just a pleasurable, wonderful experience, right? And we hope that we have many more of those than the difficult personalities. And so any comments on this or any tools that you guys use as assessors to, if you're dealing with, say, productive is the easier one, but the difficult candidates that you could share?
You can never praise or thank volunteers too much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good one.
And for me, frankly, if somebody is being difficult, I will actually shorten the debrief, but then I will follow up with an email later, copying their director of assessment on the recommendations for improvement.
Okay.
Just to say, hey, you didn't want to hear it, but let's let people know what you need to work on.
Nice. Good. That's a good one, Glenn. Good.
Yeah, and you can pull them if they're resistant to your feedback. You can pull them in on gauging other perspectives on how that aspect of their performance needed to change. So, how did the players react to that? How did your ARs react to that? Did the coach like being treated that way? And maybe you can't force it to them, but you can say, "Hey, have you considered it this way? Have you considered it this way?"
Right. That's good. And then last comments, and then we'll just close it for just kind of final thoughts.
I think the really important point is that you approach it as a referee coach. I am here to help you develop your skills. I am here to help you recognize what works and what doesn't. And it works really well. When you have that conversation from that perspective.
So Rick, I actually set that expectation before the assessment. I'll email them quite a bit before it. And my comment is, my goal is to help you become a better you as a referee. If you pass, that's a secondary plus. Or I say when you pass, I think.
I agree. And if they're not recommended for upgrade, I make the point of saying, I'm ready to work with you. Let's focus on these few things and let's go to the next step.
Yep.
But the relationship is critical.
Excellent. Thank you. Good comment, Rick. Appreciate it.
Well, and I actually like your use of the term referee coach as opposed to assessor, because it has that more positive connotation.
Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
So when I give presentations, there's always some learnings that I have as giving the presentation, and these are Miller's kind of like takeaways at the end of the day, right? So I just wanted to share them with you. Just mentoring from region area referee coaches, going into a national referee assessment it is so important to gauge what the region and the area is what they've done to work with the candidates. And I would I asked, it was interesting, some of the people that I worked with at Ken Aston Cup, I was asking just kind of general questions. And how's the mentoring working in your area? Obviously, Camarillo, Ventura area, it's great. There's some good referee coaches up there. But it wasn't consistent all the way throughout. I also took it back to our area, which is Area Q up in Paso Robles to Lompoc, San Luis Obispo area, and we have a beginning mentoring program. We don't have as many coaches as we need, and so we can always get better. And so, but understanding that capability of the candidates going into the process as a referee coach can help you. Obviously, it might move to more of a recommended for further work, but understanding that can improve the success rate if you know where the candidates are and are they ready for that assessment. Clear expectations of the process, what the assessor has to see them demonstrate. This was an interesting one. My last assessment, I spent about an hour walking through with a candidate before the actual assessment. This was like a Tuesday, Wednesday, before a Saturday national assessment. And we walked through the process and we set all of the expectations as to why. And Glenn, I kind of gets back to what you're talking about before your assessment, right? You were contacting the candidates, right? And understanding what the expectations of the process are, and making sure they understand it, what they have to demonstrate, and that's our target for the whole process. I definitely took back personality of the candidate. That's resonating in my head. How do I've fortunately had not have a lot of the difficult personalities. Bob's hooked me up with all the positive ones. So I've had great experiences. So I'm thinking about, man, if I have a difficult person, some of the tools we talked about tonight, or some of the feedback from the survey, what we use there, and then just feedback along the lines of the framework. How do we give an evaluation that's consistent, evaluator to evaluator to evaluator? Is it important to do that? They preach it on the U.S. soccer side. And so it's just kind of left me some questions on my mind. Hey, is it something that we should do from an AYSO standpoint? Should we have a more structured format in terms of how we do our feedback? I just left it open, and I don't think I don't know if it would be challenging to align people in terms of feedback. The value of that, I don't know, because we have great assessors out there, right? And as long as we get the feedback to the candidates, that's the most important thing. It's not necessarily how we give it, as long as they get the message, right? So
Miller, I think something I would like to communicate to everybody is that AYSO assessors, AYSO program is head and shoulders above USS Soccer. We are the core of soccer, and our programs, our training, our implementation are better than anything you get in USS Soccer. And so what we need to do is be strong in that and promote the program.
No, very fair, very fair. And again, my comment is not I wasn't critiquing AYSO against US Soccer. It was just the areas that I've been working in. How does this resonate in terms of the work that we've been doing and I've been learning, and then obviously coming into the Section 10 position, how is this an area to think about where we can improve on to strengthen the program? So any final? Go ahead.
I think I understand that. But what I would like to leave everybody with is that AYSO is a foundation. We are a community-based organization. We are we're a community-based organization, and we are, well, I'm looking for words right now because the emotions are overwhelming me. Everybody who participates in this organization is strong.
Yeah. I'll just add in that to me, I'm quite struck by actually the consistency between the goals of what we're trying to do and what I've seen described here. And I think it's completely consistent with the goals we've had for developing and advancing and improving referees for years and years and years. And I think that from what I can see from the Federation, they have the very similar goals. Sometimes the populations of people are different, and so that's something we have to think about as we go forward. But I think that the stuff that I've heard here today, the stuff that Miller that you brought from the Federation, and things I've heard from USSF folks, for example, folks who've been at the camps, is in a sense surprisingly similar. So I think it's a good thing. It's a good sign going forward.
Rick, do you want to any other thoughts on your side, or would you like or should I open up to others?
No, I think AYSO is an amazing. It's an amazing organization.
Mm-hmm.
It's community based. Anyway, we have a great program. We are the leader, and the association with USS Soccer is secondary. If you look back at the history, they are adopting our policies and our training,
mm-hmm.
and we have a great program.
We have a great program. Agreed. Cindy, comments?
I was going to say that, being an assessor can be a very solitary activity, and I've really appreciated the opportunity to hear and see the feedback, and I think I will be a better assessor because of it, and I appreciate being able to hear the different aspects of the way the different organizations approach it, and I agree with Ben that it gives you validation, but I think it's always good to be open to critique and self-critique and self-analysis as an assessor so that I can use best practices to help these candidates.
Thank you. Any other closing comments?
Miller, I think we need to look at the content of everything we discussed and look at a workshop for upcoming expos, not this year, but next year.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of good information here that would help assessors do a better job.
Okay.
Word.
Okay. I like your idea, Rick. I think what I would like to add to that is I want to make sure that I think section 10 was well represented in the survey. I want to make sure 1 and 11, we get some really good responses from everybody. So I love that idea. And then I'll make sure that I pass it to 1 and 11 so I can get the same responses. And then we can, I'm sure that data is going to aggregate the same way, but it's just a richer one. And then, so the action item there is another follow-up for Expo. What can we share from this with assessors on top of perhaps maybe a pregame, thinking about a pregame topic for a presentation?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
I think there's two veins there. I think there's the one that's pregame, and I think the other one is the referee as well. It probably falls into stewards of the game, because stewards of the game is really important. If we can communicate with coaches, if we can relate with the coaches, the game is a better thing.
Okay, I'll take those thoughts and we'll do some follow-up. Keith, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with that. We have a referee in Team 3 who always stresses that, and I'm always impressed by it. That's his part of his pregame with the coach, and it's I think it's really good. I love it, Garth. So
Well,
yeah,
great. Well,
the
we'll have
stewards of the game.
we'll stay on for a few minutes if you guys still want to chat. But Lewis, thank you for the time to present this information. Thank you
Yeah.
to all the people that that filled out the survey. Definitely opened my mind and got me thinking. And you can tell we've got some great people in this organization, very passionate about what they do from the assessment standpoint and improving our referee capability. And so it's been a privilege, just reading people's responses and thinking about that. There's lots of stuff we can do with it. I'm looking forward to work in Bob's coattails, right, and work in the in that position. But thank you guys for the opportunity. Thank you for the time, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, and we'll keep that open opportunity for discussion going after we wrap up the recording here. Miller, I would say don't let the lack of ambiance in an online meeting degrade your understanding of our appreciation for the work that you've done to prepare this and facilitate this conversation tonight. Miller always does a lot of work when he presents these. We always know it's going to be original. He's taking it in from everywhere. And yeah, I'll let that applause ring for a moment. Yes, thank you, Miller. And to keep pushing on it, there's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of commitment. So as you've heard, Miller, along with Bob Hurwitz, both are here. They will be instructing the referee assessor course at the Ken Aston camp next month. Uh, so I know not everybody here is an assessor yet. Great course. And myself, along with Rocky Kovar, will be at that. We'll be at that camp leading the National Referee Assessor course, which is so thoroughly about the open-ended questions and really being able to pull in the candidate and having that more coach approach, referee coach approach. And Team 3 is still going this season. We've got another tournament this weekend, and we have these discussions. They keep coming. So it was great to see all the new faces here, and again, thank you very much to Miller. We're very happy to have had this very unique conversation tonight.